on. Beep, beep. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this thing that we like to call Movie Mondays with Matt. Plus, I'm your host, whether you like it or not, Matt Rasmussen, a.k.a. the King of Halloween, a.k.a. Local morning show director here, a.k.a. local filmmaker, a.k.a. host of Movie Mondays with Matt. And today I'm joined by a very special guest. I think this guy is the have-all, be-all of all nerddom in the Twin Ports. And, in that case, a little godlike, I might have to say. You've got your fingies in an awful lot of pots. He's none other than the living legend himself, Stephen Kaarbo. Yay, Stephen!
Thanks for having me here, Matt. I hope I don't get sucked into the realm for Mortal Kombat here if I'm godlike.
That is what they do. Yeah, they take your essence and all that. So before we get heavy into the episode, we'll be talking about Mortal Kombat. We'll be talking about Mandalorian and Grogu and a little bit more about Excalibur Con and stuff. Let's learn a little bit about you. What makes you tick, Stephen Kaarbo?
Yeah, well, I've been a nerd all my life, but I guess my nerddom of choice is Star Wars. I can remember being introduced to Star Wars via rummage sales. I bought a snowspeeder and an X-Wing Luke used at a rummage sale when I was a kid, and then I was hooked. And Star Wars toys, games, movies, everything about Star Wars has been my trajectory to the point where I started the Minnesota Star Wars Collectors Alliance, the largest Star Wars club in Minnesota, then morphed that into our nonprofit, the mnswca.org, morphed that then into a collective with local gamers for Excalibur Con, and now we're just off and running with all of this nerddom in the Northland. So partnering with folks like you and others in the area has brought, I think, a great vibe and a great feel for us nerds in the Northland.
Man, thank you. And I have to thank you, Stephen. This is what we need. This is what the Twin Ports needs. We need a con. We need this kind of an outlet for nerds to unite. This is what we're doing. You're doing God's work. So, we'll get a little bit more into Excalibur Con and all that good stuff. There's a lot coming up to discuss. But first, we're going to talk about the flick of the week, which is indeed Mortal Kombat. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Mortal Kombat franchise leading up to Mortal Kombat 2. So my first big question for you, we're going to rewind back to the start of the franchise. Of course, it was a video game before it was anything else. So, how did Mortal Kombat enter your life? Which games did you play growing up?
I can tell you specifically. So Miller Hill Mall, back in the day, the 90s, right out front, where they had the movie theater?
Yep.
Right there, they had a Mortal Kombat stand-up arcade in the movie theater, right in the entrance. And I worked at a place right next to it, and you could hear the music playing all day long. So at work, you're hearing that all day long, quarter after quarter after quarter. I will admit, I was terrible. I was no good at the game. I probably to this day terrible at it, but it was just so immersive and intriguing. The backgrounds that moved, all of that stuff, and then once I got a Sega Genesis, so I had started on an NES, but I got a Sega Genesis. One of the first games I got was Mortal Kombat. And it's in my house somewhere. I just can't find it. Mortal Kombat and then Mortal Kombat 2. So my foundation of Mortal Kombat was Sega Genesis, Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 2. And I might be misremembering this, but there was the whole kind of up in arms with video games and violence at the time. Yep. So they softened the Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2, but the Sega didn't. So you could still do the fatalities and stuff like that. And then they built in the bunny ones or the friendships, but you still could play where you rip the skull and the spine out, or Liu Kang becomes the dragon and eats you and stuff like that. So those two games are etched in my brain as the games that I played was Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 on Sega Genesis, as well as stand-up arcade right at that movie theater that was right in the mall as soon as you walked in.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, wow. I gotta say, the stand-up arcade is kind of how I was introduced also to Mortal Kombat. I brought in my Super NES version of Mortal Kombat. I have Part 1 right over here. I would play that, and yes, it is the censored version, but that's the one I played growing up quite a bit. I played it more in the arcades because they did not. You got the full effect. You got the blood, you got the spines, you got the fatalities, you got all of the, just the experience, too, of putting the quarter in the machine. There is nothing like that feeling. So that is how I was introduced to Mortal Kombat. I played a lot of Street Fighter as well. But as far as stand-up arcades, it was either the Simpsons game, Mortal Kombat, or like the Ninja Turtles beat 'em up games. Like those were the ones. So yeah, just being in those arcades. And I used to play in the arcade that was in the mall there as well. Do you remember when it moved over and it was like Aladdin's
Castle.
Aladdin's Castle? Yeah, and that was kind of over by the food court there.
I still have a coin from Aladdin's Castle. I was cleaning out some stuff. It's kind of discolored, but the Aladdin's Castle with the lamp on it.
Oh yeah.
One side said Aladdin's Castle, one side had the lamp. I've got one of those still at home. I want to clean it up, buff it up, polish it up, put it somewhere.
Oh, that's amazing, man. And a good buddy of ours, actually, Joe, who runs Mythic Mercantile. He's working on a little something. I don't know if we can talk too much about it, but he's working on something that'll give us some vibes, some retro throwback nostalgia vibes. So best of luck to him. I hope that works out.
Yeah, I just saw him this Saturday. It was his last. I just saw Joe this Saturday, last day of Mythic Merc and the current location. They'll be shut down for a few weeks, and then big announcements coming probably. I mean, I don't want to steal his thunder or anything, but pretty quick. And I think yet another way that us nerds can congregate and join together up at the mall in a much bigger space, closer to the food court where Aladdin's Castle is. So we'll have that vibe again there. But yeah, that would be something to keep an eye out on social media for Mythic Merc's new launch in hopefully in June.
Oh, that's so exciting. Okay, he and I had been talking back and forth about this for months, and I'm glad his dreams are coming true, and he's in turn going to bring our dreams to life as well. Okay. Wow. Very excited. Very excited. Okay, so back on topic. Good luck, Joe. Back on topic. We're going to talk a little bit more about Mortal Kombat now as it expanded into, well, it was a soundtrack then, for a little bit, and I brought some of the soundtracks in. Then it became a movie, a gigantic box office movie, which is one of the few, I think, video game movies that came out in the 90s that people accept. First, of course, was Mario Brothers in '93, and we did a whole episode on that. Yeah. Yes, and they took the source material and threw it in the garbage. They were like, whatever, we're going to do whatever we want. We want this to be '89 Batman. We want this to be Blade Runner. We want it to be anything except a cute, friendly game about plumbers, and it became a whole thing. And I appreciate that movie from nostalgia's sake. But then, of course, there were more adaptions that came out after that. And I think Mortal Kombat in '95 is one that people generally accept as, they did pay attention, actually, to the source material, and they gave you things that you wanted. I'm rambling about this endlessly, but I want to hear your thoughts. So what would you say, what are your thoughts on the 1995 adaptation of Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, I can remember that one specifically. I got married in '95, and I remember that being a summer flick, and that was one of the things that my wife and I did was movies. So I remember she had nothing to do with the video game or anything, but action movies and stuff like that. Totally down for that. So we went and saw that when we were down living in the cities, and we went to the theater in Edina. I remember going to it, watching it, and just the kind of the over-the-top action was great. And as probably a lot of people remember Sonya Blade, Bridget Wilson, from Billy Madison. I mean, who they grew up in the 90s, 80s, 90s doesn't remember, what red-blooded American man doesn't remember Bridget Wilson. And she was you go from the teacher and Billy Madison, Miss Vaughn, to Sonya Blade. It's such a juxtaposition, but she did a great job. I remember that, and I don't remember the actor's name, but Liu Kang I thought did a great job too, and that really stands out. And then when you get like a kind of living legend, Christopher Lambert playing Raiden like that, like it's just a fun movie. One of those you could just throw in the DVD player now, or back then VHS it, and just sit down and watch it, and you just have a good time with it. And the soundtrack, the sounds of just the sound of it, just that Mortal Kombat, just like it just kicks it off. I don't know. I have very fond memories of watching the original in '95 for sure.
Yes, samesies. In fact, I love this one a lot because I think Street Fighter came out first, the movie, in '94, and big Street Fighter fan, so I saw the Street Fighter movie when it came out, and similar to Mario Brothers, I was like, well, it didn't feel video game-ish enough. Like, it was much more true to the source material than Mario. But I was like, oh, I wanted more battles. I wanted Dulcim. I wanted more, more of actual fighting and tournament kind of things. And then I saw the TV spot for Mortal Kombat. And it was like, oh, and it blew my mind. Like, I knew I was going to get what I wanted out of that movie. And it didn't disappoint. In fact, I rewatched it again last night because, you kind of have to. It holds up as far as I'm concerned. Like, of course, the CGI isn't great, and it's very much a product of its times. But what a fun movie in general. It gave us what we wanted. And I just can't get over that scene where he gets pulled in, Scorpion pulls him in, and then they're like in the underworld. And then he has to fight Scorpion, and Scorpion pulls his mask off, his whole head comes off, and it's a skull underneath. And this fire's blowing all around, and he's fighting him with fire and the shield, and he has to cut the skeleton up and start, like, lava's coming out of him. It was like the craziest thing. And I was like, I don't remember all of this from the games, but this is the coolest thing I have ever seen. And I would definitely rank that as like the truest 90s video game adaptation. And then we got Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I'm going to go a little off script here. Mortal Kombat Annihilation then came out. And I don't think, complete opposite, I don't think I've ever been more disappointed with a video game movie or just a sequel in general, because I was of the mindset, oh boy, a sequel means it's going to be better than the original. And I was so excited for Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and then it was just a mess from the start. And I actually tried to rewatch a little bit of it last night just to just to relive that garbage that it was. And, it's not watchable at all. Do you remember it at all?
I will admit, like, I remember, and I know I have watched it. I have very little, like, it's got to be way back in the recesses. I don't remember much about it at all, other than, like, the logo and, yeah, it being somewhat forgettable. So if you look at, like, the first one, it really is like, if you go back and play the original Mortal Kombat, watching Mortal Kombat, the original movie, it's the same thing. You're not going to get like PS5, Xbox One, you're going to get Sega version, and that's super enjoyable and comforting. But like Annihilation really was not the follow-up that we needed.
No. I agree, and it's so bad. It is so bad, and I haven't watched it since it came out until last night, so it's fresh in my head. And I didn't sit through the whole thing. I wanted to watch the opening and see, okay, so how do they take it from the point we loved at the end of the first one and just turned it into utter madness? And it just immediately goes into madness where they immediately Johnny Cage dies, and it's like, what? You're going to kill the star of the first movie in the first 5 minutes? That's not cool. And they recast all the actors, cut all their hair. Well, a few of them are the same. And then it became absolute insanity. And then the CGI was so bad. And it was just remarkably bad throughout the entire movie. And it made no sense. And Anyway, I'm only rambling because I just saw it, and it's like the last thing I did before I went to bed last night. So it's it's like I gotta spit it back out there into the world where it belongs. So Mortal Kombat Annihilation. There's no question that was the end of the franchise for a while, as far as movies go. But we got a lot of fun animated spin-offs, and of course we got a bunch of other video games, and then we got this thing called Mortal Kombat in 2021, where they decided to just straight up reboot it. I'll share my thoughts on that because I've hogged the mic long enough. What were your thoughts on 2021's Mortal Kombat?
So, again, movies are super important. They're on my radar all the time. But for some reason, this one hit me kind of from nowhere. Like it wasn't on my radar. Like didn't even know that this was coming. And I saw the preview for it, and it had kind of like the evolution of the video game. It's an evolution of the movies. Like it had that grittier feel. It was at that time where like video game movies shifted, like the whole like Tomb Raider became the more gritty version, stuff like Last of Us. Like it was that shift in the media of video games, and it fit right in. Like in terms of storytelling, it had just this from the preview. You could just tell, okay, this is going to be a story. It's not just the video game. And then we went and watched it. I remember going with my wife and son, and all of us had moderate expectations because, I mean, probably for me, like the distaste of something like Annihilation, or like even the first one, like, okay, are they just going to just kind of like mock the first one or something? Like I had no idea. Went into it, we all loved it. We came out like, this is really good. It told a deep story. I apologize to the actor who plays Scorpion and his whole journey, but he's a fantastic actor and played it so well. They just had great casting, great CGI, great special effects, great just the way they put the story together. It was one of those movies where you go in and expectations are just blown away, just absolutely blown away. So I very specifically remember that with this one.
Samesies. I didn't expect it to be amazing. I was like, well, nothing's going to beat the 95 original. And, I was perplexed with it. Like, after I got out of the theater, I was like, is that better than the 95 original? I mean, maybe. I mean, things about it are. And, you know, my one disappointment with it was that it wasn't the tournament. It wasn't the tournament, but I read later that was by design. So I was like, okay, well, you know, and I had heard way back then, in 2021, way back then, that it was always designed as a trilogy, where part 1 would be before the tournament, part 2 is the tournament, and part 3 is post-tournament. So keeping that in mind, I was like, okay, well, you know, even though it's not the tournament, we still got a lot of fights. We still got to see those fan favorite characters, and we spent time with them. We went on a journey with them and got to see them become who they're gonna become. It was beautifully done. Like the imagery is beautiful and all of that. There was only one tiny little minor gripe, if you remember me whining about it in the Marcus lobby, is that I was like, why didn't they play the theme like ever in that movie? That was my one little gripe. So I was like, going into 2, all they got to do is play the theme at least once, and that'll undo my thoughts on it, and that'll fix the one little tiny nitpicky wrong that I had. Sure enough, but I don't want to get too heavy into part 2 yet, but they did it. They did it. Any other thoughts on Mortal Kombat 2021?
I just think that it was one of those movies that hits at the right time. So generationally, you think of these franchises like Star Wars or Star Trek, or even things like Pokemon. They are needing to kind of reinvent themselves a little bit for each generation. So then you have someone like me who's old and played the Mortal Kombat at the movie theater, and then you have my son who's like a next generation who played his Mortal Kombat on Xbox, and you can bridge that gap. I can go see Mortal Kombat 2021. He can go see Mortal Kombat 2021 and enjoy it equally. It's not like, oh, this is just nostalgia. The old people are going to see it. Oh, this is just for the young guns. Like, no, it's literally made for everybody. And when you can, I don't want to say like reinvent necessarily, because you're keeping true to the source material and you're not throwing away stuff, but just bringing up to speed the storytelling of these movies and games from the 90s up to this more modern era. You bring in those teenagers and young adults and people and like, oh no, this is actually pretty good, and you can bridge that gap. So that was the main thing with that movie. I was like, I don't know if my son, like, is he gonna like it? I liked it. Did he? He loved it too. So it was perfect.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, they made that movie for everybody, and that's why I was so excited for 2. And like, oh man, yeah, just like, oh, everyone I talked to was like, wow, 2021, that was actually pretty good, and everyone was very highly anticipating part 2. Then, so I'm gonna leave you on a little cliffhanger here. We're going to go to break for just a quick minute, and when we come back, we're going to start round 2 of our Mortal Kombat episode, and we will be talking about the actual flick of the week, Mortal Kombat 2. We'll be talking about the Mortal Kombat 2 event, and then another very special Star Wars event, and some other fun things that are coming up. So stick around, and we will be back in just a hot minute, my friends. Joink.